We're happy to announce that on March 20th, Sauna Camp will be coming back to Minnesota for its second annual event. We're going to have 3 panelists talking about wellness. We've got a Mount Everest summiter, we've got 2 Ironman athletes, and the inventor of hostage tape. In addition, we're going to have, of course, 2 hours of sauna and cold plunge with some Himalayan chocolate in between. We'll have themed saunas. We'll have story sauna, silent sauna, community sauna for different topics. And then we'll end with an amazing wood-fired meal from Fumo. All the details are on the CuriousBuilderPodcast.com.
We get deep into client stories, and it's really cool. Travis, I drank the Kool-Aid in college. His whole philosophy, his ethos is writing a poem. So we take all this information from the client, we write a poem, and the poem drives the entire form. It's everything, and it's what we go back to every time. And so you're really creating shoes that fit for these clients.
Today on the Curious Builder podcast, we had Kelly Grace in from Travis Price Architects, and buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a heck of a ride. We talk mostly about wellness, how it affects architecture and building, and really this journey as humans as we're trying to build and design these amazing spaces, how we interact with it, and how we can dwell well by how we live. Without further ado, here is Kelly Grace. Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today, I'm joined by Kelly Grace, the managing principal at Travis Price Architects. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. And for those watching, I've got brand new curtains, velvet curtains from a past client of mine. She said, "Can I give you curtains?" I said, "Please." So anyway, I want private curtains here. I feel like I'm doing a theater show. My daughter would love it. Well, we're going to change up the format a little bit. I told you before you were going to get a surprise. So before we let you do your brief intro, and then we have some cool questions we want to dive into, I'm letting the guest before write a question that the guest after them will have to answer first. And so today, at the end of the interview, you'll get to ask your question that the next interview will get to ask. So the question that Drew Beeson asked, who's a friend of mine who was in studio earlier this week, said, "What was the most difficult thing that you've encountered in your career?"
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, heavy hitter, just heavy hitting, big one, right?
Come on. The most difficult thing. Oh my goodness. I think to date, it was probably the beginning parts of, and this started happening about 10 years ago, but creeping in definitely bigger now, is bringing on an envelope consultant or an enclosure consultant into our work, which I've learned a ton from. But, bigger clients have more consultants, and this was probably our biggest home we'd ever done. It was close to a $20 million home, and there was consultants galore, and it was almost like you're in the hot seat with these envelope consultants. They're nitpicking every detail of ours. And it was a bit daunting, because they're not hired by us, which usually consultants are kind of hired by the architect or managed by the architect. But when it's, client representatives and their team, and it was, I think it was just challenging in the sense, one, they came in late. If they had come in the beginning and design phase, awesome. We'd be cheerleading and like dancing. But this was like coming in the midst of construction. They wanted to hire this person. So it was challenging, right? Because we're having to pivot and change and just really be under the magnifying glass. So, but I welcome them now, especially if they come in the beginning. That's awesome. Join me in the beginning, not when we already have finishes up or whatever, but
I think that's relatable. I mean, everyone has had projects they've been on where either, somebody comes late to the party and then has an outsized vote. It's just really challenging. I've been a big, in our market in the Midwest, they typically come to the builders first, or at least in my experience, they're coming to our brand first. And the first thing I do is establish the entire team. I'll interview them, then I'll have them interview 1 or 2 architects, 1 or 2 designers, and then we have the team from day one. In fact, today, I think it's like 15 degrees out here. We just had a nice little snowstorm yesterday, but we did a site walk for our first site walk. So we had the whole team, the architect, designers, and then we went just because it was far away from everyone's offices. We actually went and met at the designer was the closest. We met at their studio for 4 hours for the initial intake meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and I just think it's so valuable for everyone to be at the first meeting. And I had a client a year ago where she actually asked me. She was a little daunted by the process, and she said, "Mark, when it's possible, could you please do what you can so that I don't have to repeat myself?" And she didn't mean it from a negative way. Like you could say, like, you could
Mm-hmm.
see that it all depends on the nuance of how, and I really give her kudos for her warmth and her vulnerability. And I think her point was that she realized that if she repeated herself too many times, like she would not want to build. And she really wanted to support her husband, and I just, it was such a mark in her favor that
Mm-hmm.
I did
Mm-hmm.
whatever I could to have the teams all together all the time so that
Yeah.
she could only have to say something once, and or all the team could sort of collaborate and she could just kind of witness it. And so anyway.
She must have been there at some point. Either she built a house before, or she's not new to the communication world.
I
she's
I think she's actually really young and this is their first house. I think she knows herself. I think she knows that
Mhm.
it would shut her down. And
Yeah.
so I give her credit for,
Cool.
for giving us the kind of the social cues on what we need to do to make it a successful endeavor. And like your point, like if that
Mhm.
consultant had been there from day one, like, you can work with anybody, but it's a little bit hard when you've already made the 12-course meal and then a new chef comes in, right
Yes.
before you serve the meal and
Good
be like, oh,
analogy.
oh, by the way, our client is gluten free and only wants food from Japan. You're like, that's nothing on the menu right now.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Great analogy. That's it. So,
Well, well, excuse me. Give us the elevator pitch of who you are, a little bit about your firm, and then we'll dive right into some of our questions about really, I think, you'd mentioned it right before we hit record was the percent of homes that have architects involved. I think would be a fascinating discussion. So why don't you give us
mhm,
the
mhm.
the 30,000 foot view of who you are and where Travis Price Architects kind of does their work?
Right. So, based out of Washington, D.C., went to college here, started working here as soon as I got out. Started working for Travis as an intern in college. Graduate in the 2008 recession. Architects weren't hiring. Worked for a construction company for about 4 years on Capitol Hill. Um, Came back to Travis's when they were hiring, and then I've been there ever since, going on 15 years now. So we design very modern, very innovative, all storytelling projects. So we get deep into clients' stories. We are literally want to know every little thing about them, and it's really cool. Travis, I drank the Kool-Aid in college. His whole philosophy, his ethos is writing a poem. So we take all this information from the client, we write a poem, and the poem drives the entire form. It's everything, and it's what we go back to every time. And so you're really creating shoes that fit for these clients. It's so custom. And he's been on the cutting edge of, he coined the term passive solar in the 70s. So the idea of sustainability and eat green and all of these things, they're just embedded in our work. Our work is all very natural materials. It's real. We don't ever use fake stuff. So it was a perfect segue into my health journey, which really started when having kids. Well, it got deeper when I had kids. So let me say that, because I've been down the food journey for probably 15 years, but then my oldest son is 6. So the past 6 years, it's just gone deeper and deeper into health, and I couldn't believe that I didn't have the full connection to buildings yet. I mean, you've got the baseline stuff, but deeper, deeper layers. So that's just where my trail's been, because I'm doing it for my own personal self to start. And then now I'm rewriting the entire spec book for the firm. It's not like, do you want a healthy home? It's, you will get a healthy home. It's all in there. And, the conversation in the beginning will get really wiggled down to how much square footage can you get to make sure that we can afford you a healthy home. Like, I'd rather you build less and better, build that 300-year-old home, make it be, as long lasting. The cradle to cradle and longevity is a big thing for us, resilience. So it just makes sense. But we go deeper into the story with the clients, where it goes into health, where it's like, how do you wake up in the morning? What is the first thing you do? Do you go outside? Do you look at the sun? Are we grounding? There's just the health layers that get to go into that. And then it moves to, their bathroom and their kitchen. Like, how are you cooking? How are you wrapping your food? No, I'm not going to put a Bluetooth, phone charger in your countertop. No, like, and those are the layers of the health that I'm talking about now. It's like health meets smartness, smart technology, and it's so nuanced and conflicting, but I just rail against it at this point. Clearly, this is not a short elevator pitch. I'm going to stop there, but
No, I mean, there's a
I get
thousand.
fired up.
Well, first of all, I love that you write a poem and then that poem is like the guiding philosophy. That's amazing. I would love to, if you have a poem, one of the, when I'm talking sometime, if you have one up, I'd love to hear one. I don't know if
Oh,
you have
for
one
sure. I don't
easily.
have one up right now, but a
Yeah,
lot of I can show you homes
I,
on how they all started.
I
And
would love to see that.
mhm.
You know, if you're listening to this podcast, you really have to go to travispricearchitects.com and check it out. Your stuff is gorgeous. I mean, some of the architecture and the viewpoints, you're like, this looks like Tony Stark's house, you know, in Malibu, like in the movies. Like you do some impressive stuff. One of the things, and it's just relevant to what you just shared about kind of this health journey, we're doing a home right now called Misa Hus, and I'm on my own journey of, I haven't done a spec home in 18 years, and so this won't be about Misa Hus. I have a whole separate episode about that, but basically the whole concept is like how all of our homes are pretty, you know, health forward, but this one is like a whole nother dive because I don't have a client, so I can kind of experiment with things that I haven't before. And
Mhm.
I've really settled on the word wellness because I think wellness means different things to different people. And you know
Mhm.
what wellness is to me might be something different to somebody else. And so, but the more I talk about it, the more it's like a magnet. Like it just attracts people,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, of a similar ilk and a similar style. And actually today we were in this design meeting I was just mentioning, and the client said, you know, budget is always a consideration. I'm not going to say an issue because then it's not, it's, they have a healthy budget, but their comment is, do you want a tub in the primary suite? And we've seen probably the last 5-10 years where now in the Midwest anyway, where it used to always be, you had to have one. You have to have one in the house, but you don't have to have one in the owner suite. And her comment is I never take a bath. And it just clicked on me. The interior designer said something that just sort of clicked. And I said, you know, everything kind of comes full circle at some point in life. It seems like clothes, you know, like bell bottoms and all that kind of stuff. But I was
Mhm.
like, the tubs have kind of been gone for a while. But I wonder if, as wellness is having its heyday right now, I think I read a stat that right now the wellness industry is 1.8 trillion in the United States. Everything, you know, from THC to drinks to carbonated, blah blah blah, to saunas, cold plunges, all the things you expect, plus
Mhm.
things we don't even know we're talking about, is going to double in the next 10 years. So like it is everywhere, and it's going to be
Mhm.
everywhere. And my comment is I wonder if slowing down, like people are deliberately taking times to like take breaks away from their phone, to take, you know, shut down and kind of have like a mental reset, because we realize that all the stimulation is really bad for us. And it
Mhm.
takes a lot of self-discipline because all computer electronics are very addictive by nature, hence why they say you're a user. Other than like drugs,
Yeah.
computer, and this was, I'm paraphrasing this from a movie. Well, it's true. I think it was called
I
the
never thought of it that way.
and so there's only two demographics that describe their clientele as users: the drugs. If you're a drug dealer selling drugs, you're users. But anyone that signs on, it's like, what's your username? What's your user password? Like
Mhm.
it's meant to be addictive,
Yep.
and our brain is not set
Funny.
up for that. And so anyway, where I was going with this is the bathtub. I think is going to make a resurgence because I think the new luxury will be: can you take time to take an hour bath and relax? Can you have can you have a glass of wine and read a book? Could you read the paper? Could you just soak after a workout and just relax? And like it's a little bit like a natural burning fireplace. Like a natural burning fireplace takes way more time than a gas fireplace. But there's no question that, in my opinion, that wellness in terms of slowing you down, being more intentional, like
Mhm.
that is something that's very significant. And so anyway, just your comment about that. Sorry, I went down this wormhole on that bathtub, but that's
No.
kind of what that reminded me of.
It's so, so true. And there's so much research to back it at this point, too. I think I've been down the trail for a while, but so many people are just now beginning the wellness trail, and they might not think they want a bath now, but when they realize that, like there was an article just this week that came out how bathing in a really warm tub has similar effects to what a sauna can do for your body. And I was like, wow, that's so interesting. I never would have thought that. And, cold plunging is great. In a lot of these bathtubs, you can do both now. You can have it in your room. Jury's out if it's great for everybody, but I think it's awesome. But some say it's not great for certain women in different parts of their life, but who knows, but I think it's definitely going to come back, and I push for it. Yeah.
Well, and think about, I mean, I don't know, it sounds like your kids are similar to my age. I have a 9, 7, and 5-year-old, and we do bath time every night. Now, that's not why we're doing bath, because they're dirty little mongrels that need to be scrubbed before they go to bed. But I wonder if, like, having that calming time in a warm bath. I mean, you've been doing it with your baby since they're little, and then they
Mm-hmm.
go to bed. And I'd heard this similar thing, or I sauna probably 3, 4 nights a week. And
Mm-hmm.
someone else told me in terms of like thermal culture and like your body, like if you go from hot to cold in a short period of time, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's hormones or like your central nervous system or what it is, but basically the advice was is have your teeth brushed, like be ready to go to bed, take a sauna, and then basically go straight from, after you take a rinse, go straight to bed. And as your body goes from hot to cold, like it knocks you out. And if you've ever taken a sauna and gone to bed, like you are lights out,
Yep.
really deep sleep. But I wonder if we haven't sort of been doing that with our kids for a long time. I mean, most parents seem to give their kids baths at night because you're not doing it in
Mm-hmm.
the morning before
Mm-hmm.
school. But anyway, back again, going to heat to cold. So anyway.
Yep. 100%. And I really do think with the immersion of technology that the home more than ever is your sanctuary, and you have to create that space for yourself, for your family. They say today like 90% of people are living, are indoors. And can you imagine, I mean, whether it's their office or their home, they're inside. Like you need that reprieve at home, which is why I think it's critical, like when we design bedrooms at this point. I mean, I am trying my hardest to design them with kill switches for power. I want that to seriously not just be a sanctuary, but literally cutting off your power and your Wi-Fi to your room so that you don't have all of these frequencies. And that's a whole deeper conversation, but I think that's where homes need to go. They need to be really wary of these
So
electronics.
so let's talk about that. I'm actually really interested in this topic in particular, as
Hmm.
you knew I would be. So tell me about these kill switches, because I looked into it for Misa Hoos. My goal was to have a Faraday cage for the house, where like the idea was like when my kids were in middle school or high school, could I flip a switch and not only could you obviously shut off from a parental control like the Wi-Fi on your phone, but like you can
Hmm.
jump to your cellular network. But I also wanted to prevent it from jumping to the neighbor's Wi-Fi if you're in a city setting.
Right.
And I was told that it's actually illegal. The jamming technology is like the same as a police jammer, and it's actually a felony. I found this out very humorously because if you create this a cage or this system around your house, emergency signals don't work either. So smoke alarm, carbon monoxide, 911 calls, and so evidently, because I stumbled onto like this genius idea, I could patent it, and like, oh man, every parent in America I'm gonna quit building and just license this thing. But how just anyway, that's my little quick journey. What tell me about these kill switches and how you practically actually apply them and how it works.
Yeah, I mean, full disclosure, we haven't done one yet, but they're in our houses that are coming under permit review right now. This is where everything is moving so fast paced at this point, but that is something that we're drawing into our bedrooms now, and really just from a bedroom standpoint mostly, where all the power to the bedroom has a switch at the door that you shut the whole room off. No longer is power going to your outlets. It's definitely, and then a Wi-Fi turn off is something that you might do, and usually your Wi-Fi is not in your bedroom. But like wherever your Wi-Fi is, you would shut that off. But the kill switch is mostly for things that are coming to your bedroom. Now, a lot of newer homes do have internet wired to their bedroom, or what do you call it, wireless. So that it would cut all of that too.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. If you're still chasing checks and juggling spreadsheets, it's time to upgrade. Adaptive is revolutionizing how builders get paid with AI-powered bill pay, automated draws, one-click payments, and built-in lien waivers. Faster payments, fewer headaches, and total visibility. Adaptive takes care of the back-end chaos so you can focus on what you do best, building. We've used Adaptive for 2.5 years and trust them to keep our projects moving and payments flowing. Learn more at adaptive.build and simplify the pay process today. For more information, you can also listen to episode 10 and episode 15. I never thought about that. In
Mm-hmm.
terms of like we use spheres, so one thing that our Wi-Fi AV tech team say is like basically a sphere. So on a 3-story home or basement, main level, second story, you'd stagger them so that the 360 sphere would hit all the rooms. And everyone wants good fiber optic or connections when you want it, but I never thought about turning it off every night because why have that network going when you're sleeping? What's the point of it?
No, I mean, it's the point of it is that we're all addicted to our technology, right? And a lot of us
Mhm.
are at night scrolling before bed. And that's just something that takes a lot of practice to get out of. But yeah, turning the Wi-Fi off at night. I mean, if you ever have seen those diagrams of how the Wi-Fi just radiates through a building, through a space, I mean, it's people don't believe in frequencies, but they believe in Wi-Fi. It cracks me up, right? It's like, what? You don't
That's so
believe?
funny. That's so well said.
I mean, it's so funny. But yeah, I mean, if you can get to be that diligent and turn your Wi-Fi off at night along with the power around your sleep, I think that's a critical step. I mean, all of this is baby steps. It's so hard to get there right away. I mean, it takes a lot of money and a lot of work to get to some of these levels of, wellness within the home without tearing it up. So, it might be something where you bring over someone to look at your panel and see how it's wired and see, maybe what can you shut down at night easier. And it might not be everywhere, but if it's at least like around your bed, there's so many studies about power outlets near people's heads. Nothing to do with Wi-Fi, but just power. Could be dirty electricity. You'll see a lot with like babies in their cribs up against the wall with a power outlet. That might be dirty electricity. You're
What do
seeing
you
that a
what do
lot.
you what do you mean by dirty electricity? What does that mean?
Ooh, so take me with a full grain of salt. I hire consultants because I'm the creative designer and orchestrate all the experts, right? But I know enough to be dangerous here. So dirty electricity is when the frequency is basically scrambled and it creates high voltage spikes within the power line, within the power throughout the house. And those spikes are what can affect bodies. And it doesn't happen everywhere, but electricians, there's things that they can do to mitigate this, but I've heard it's especially high around like dimmer switching with LEDs. There's certain technologies that are not quite equipped for the power and the matching of the power. Um, but I think it's something that everyone should look into. I'm like I don't want to speak too much because I definitely don't know all of it, but I know enough that it's if you follow some of the people in the EMF world that are going around with the EMF readers in bedrooms, especially like hotel rooms, the amount of like spike that's happening at a hotel bed, because you imagine all the things that are wired into those headboards in a hotel. It's like, ooh, it's a load. I even saw someone the other day talking about how, you ever realize how you feel so bad after a flight, but a lot of times you don't realize your head is on a headrest and the headrest
Oh,
behind
has a
you
computer. Oh,
has a
wow. Yeah, that's
TV in it, and you're just, you know, like on top of all the other parts of planes making you sick, it's like this extra layer of like on
I
your
didn't
head.
even think of that. That's wild. When you mention it like that, you are so right. I
It's
must have
it's
I
wild.
must have a metal head because it doesn't bother me. But I like but the concept. I do like your earlier thing that people don't believe in frequencies but believe in Wi-Fi. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I think too it's hard because we don't even know that it doesn't bother us, right? Some of it's so minuscule. Like it could be something where it doesn't give you a headache, but you have a sinus infection or you have I don't know. There's just
I mean,
ailments can act in different ways.
I think that something that's relatable is like stress. It seems like I'll just speak for myself. Like I'm not always aware when I'm under stress until I relax and I realize, oh whoa, I was carrying that stress latently. Or like if you go get a massage, you ever done that where you lay down on the table to get a massage and like you relax and as you relax you realize like wow, I had no idea how tight and I work out a ton. So it's like, is it because I'm working out? No, most of the time like when I have a my HRV, which is like a this isn't meant to be a health podcast, but here we go. Is that like a
You
lot of
have me
times
on.
yeah, it's stress from work. So like it ends up being like it's not stress from running 10, 15, whatever miles.
Hmm.
It's the stress of thinking of that client, and a lot of it is so latent. So I mean that's one of the reasons why I'm such a big advocate of exercise personally for myself, but also just through the Curious Builder in general, boot camp,
Hmm.
sauna camp, other things that we're involved with, is because by sort of flushing it out regularly, like we don't even know all the health that we're doing, and yeah, our brains are just wild. I mean, they're electrical instruments, right? I mean, I believe our brain
Totally.
gives off electrical currents, and so it's
Hmm.
no wonder that this dirty electricity or whatever people are impacted by it with moods, and you don't know till like you get out to nature. I just recently learned what grounding was. Where you walk outside bare feet, and I know like there's grounding beds and all kinds of different stuff, but someone was saying like, well, all you really have to do is go barefoot and go walk outside, and I'm like, have you been to Minnesota in January? It's probably not going to go barefoot in the backyard. It's
Oh man, I know, and I try. It's still cold. It's yes. Like there's a difference. I think the distinction outside is earthing, but we don't need to go into that. I think but just to segue into like staying on electricity for a minute, we talked about it before we started the Huberman podcast that
yeah.
just came out, and he had a scientist on there, and they're talking about how They've been researching this for, I think, 10 or 15 years, since 2000. Oh my gosh, 2000 feels like 15 years ago to me.
Yeah.
25 years ago, when LEDs really started coming out, they started researching this, and with lab tests and mice and all this stuff, and they're finally coming out saying how bad LED lights are. And they're equating it to asbestos in today's buildings, is what this guy was saying. And it just rocked me, because I've been talking about this for strongly the past 6 months because of some of the deeper research I've been doing. But you think about LED lights in schools, in homes, in hospitals where you're supposed to be getting health. And it's because they're just full of blue frequency. They don't have the UV red light frequency that comes with incandescents. It's gone. It's not even close, because incandescents really are similar to the sun spectrum. They hit a full range of a spectrum. So I mean, have you ever seen the videos of they'll take students, and like they'll be watching them misbehave over like a long length of time in school, and then they'll change the lighting, and over that same length of time they'll see the behavior change
I
because
have. Whoa. Is this
because
YouTube or what is this video?
oh, there's several out there. I'll show you
This
after.
sounds amazing.
Yes, it's incredible, and it's scary because every school everywhere today is LED lights. I mean, it's in our code, which is why I'm railing right now and trying to cheerlead the
So let me dial down. So like we've been using the last probably 2-3 years, and DMF is just a manufacturer, right? Because it can warm dim. Would even those types of cans still have the same issues?
yeah,
Even though they're much more, they can at least get you can affect the temperature and the Kelvin of them. That still doesn't move the
still
needle.
doesn't hit the color range that's
So
required.
then the next level up that I'm aware of is like the Ketra. That I believe it can follow the circadian rhythm of like the sun. Can those do it?
Maybe that one, but from what this scientist was saying, he hadn't seen any. Now, I don't know to what level he researched and if he's heard of that one, but LED has come a long way. Like the higher quality ones, they've really figured out the flickering. That was the big problem, is these lights have a slow flicker that you can't see with your naked eye.
Right.
And that was causing a lot of mood disorder, especially like students in these places, because they don't realize that they're like kind of under this light. So the high quality LEDs have figured that out. They've stopped the flicker. But the spectrum of light color, from my understanding, is that it's
That,
still
the
doesn't.
problem is, I have to imagine we're still a long ways away, because think of in the last 25 years. I mean, there's no question they're better now, but I would just tour to school because we actually have a stadium light issue right now. I know more about stadium light LEDs than any builder in the country right now.
Like stadiums, big
Yeah,
stadiums.
so we have a project right now, a huge home. It's a half mile away from a high school football field, and the client was out at night, and it's called light spillage. They're supposed the modern lights are supposed to be designed within 200 feet, and then the light goes to dark basically. And we're a half mile away. It looks like a 747 is landing in your backyard. It's crazy. And so they're under 20-year-old light technology. And there's really new LED lights that just came out in the last couple of years that can directionally spread. Now, I'm sure the light quality is still terrible, but you're outside playing football, so like you're there for 2 hours. I think they can manage probably. But the point of it being, we went into the school to have a talk with the city administrator, and he had just commented how energy savings was their number one, and cost and energy, right? So like those usually sometimes can go hand in hand. Well, just because it's affordable, and this is something I've discovered in my own journey with Misa Hus, is just because it is earth friendly doesn't make it people friendly, and vice versa. There are plenty of things that that we can partake of. Anyway, it's just sort of interesting as you go down this journey. That's what I mean about wellness. It is very subjective. It's a little bit like food. What might, if you have celiac or, some sort of a wheat disorder of some sort, like what you eat is a real problem. And to the other person that doesn't have that, it's just really interesting. I feel like in some ways there's so many options and there's so much that people sort of just tune it out because they're like, oh my, this is another thing I have to learn about. And so it just becomes a lot.
It's tough. It's tough. I do think lighting goes beyond the food level, because I do think we're all circadian creatures, and like we do align in that sense. And the deeper I learn about it, the more I learn like sun has more to do with not just our circadian rhythm, but our digestion, our hormones, every way in which our body functions is based on the sun. And we feared it for so many years. And I really think there's going to be a big shift. This is a whole nother level of discussion, but I really do hope that engineers and we figure out a way to get this handled, right? Because the blue light is in our street lights, it's in our car lights, it's in our house lights. I mean, the blue, purple, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but we have purple lights all over the place here. And it's kind of tragic too. It's not that pretty, right? It was pretty when it was romantically golden and very candlelit, and now we're like
I
in the
mean,
morning.
maybe costs will come down. I mean, I believe I'll check into this after, but I think the Ketra is a brand name, and I just know because I'm fascinated. I've pitched it to several clients; they just haven't been willing to pay for it. I want to say it's like $600 to $800 per can, so it's very expensive. The DMF cans, again, this is a brand. There's multiple ones that do this, but the ones that I'm using at Misahus, I just didn't have honestly the budget to do Ketra because I would have done it in a heartbeat. The idea that plus it's just cool, like the idea that I could tell you as a client that hey, when you wake up at 5:30 in the morning, we've set the sun level at 20% sun, and like because basically it gets the brightest during the midday because shocking, that's when the sun is also the brightest, and then as it dims towards the evening, so you go through this whole cycle. And we did actually have a client who told me that she is very sensitive to LED lights, and she was willing to pay for the upgrade for it to DMF, warm dim over traditional LED. And she gets headaches very easily, and so we went into the AV lighting studio, and it was really helpful because the AV company had it going on, and they had all these light settings. And they said, okay, this is your traditional light. And the lady was like, oh, this is brutal. And then they did the next one. She's like, that's marginal. And then they didn't tell them, of course, the cost. They just were saying they want to see how you react. And the final one, she's like, this is amazing. And they're like,
Good.
yeah, the cost is too. And so anyway, at the end of the day, they decided on the middle road. But at least that discussion was not happening 2 years ago. I mean, we didn't even know that you could have that discussion, frankly, or I didn't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the big things at our firm that we really try, I mean, we really don't put many recessed lights. If we can avoid it, we'll do it in high task areas, maybe the kitchen. But the dream for us is a beautiful wood ceiling where we uplight it and we really just make it this golden color and that you don't really see any light bulbs. That's our dream. You might see a couple in the kitchen in places where you really need them. But for the most part, they're hidden. You never see it. And that's something we've done long before this health discussion. I mean, we've been doing that for as long as I can remember.
I think that's, as an architect, you are way ahead. And I appreciate the architects I work with. Now lighting, at least I do mostly residential construction. And I think that discussion is happening in the last 2 years in a way that it never did for my previous 19 years of business, where now you have, legitimately lighting designers that all they do is lighting design, or obviously architects are usually good at that too in terms of placement, but even they'll say, well, an experienced lighting designer, we'll let them take the lead. And so we're having a lot more collaboration with that discussion. And you're right. I think, when you look at really high-end homes and high-end architecture, usually the thing that now that I'm attuned to it, you're right. All the lighting is hit. It's all like a cool restaurant. Like, why do you like the vibe? Like, why does it feel so welcoming? Because you're not being blasted out by stadium lights for one thing. Like my podcast studio right now, I've got 5 lights shining on my face to take away shadows. But who would want to eat like that or live like that? That'd be terrible.
Yeah, 100%.
Interesting. What was the conclusion of that Huberman podcast about LEDs? Like, where do we go from here as a country?
It's funny. Obviously, they did touch on this, how it is extremely hard for anyone to pivot in a big way with this because it's very costly. And they just said the biggest thing you can do is what you just said, which is get out, ground, be in the sun, get that infrared whenever you can. You want to hear another interesting segue that this goes into, which is so crazy for buildings, is every piece of glass today, every building code today makes you put film on your glass, right? You have to have energy rated glass. Whatever layer of solar band 60 or whatever you're going to add, it's got to be there. And so it's really crazy because all of those films block UV light, and that's also affecting us. So it goes deep, and it has a big effect on energy versus health. So I don't know what the solution is to this yet, because obviously we don't want a condensating house where it's and a cold piece of glass. But at the same time, for modernism, our windows are, 10 by 10, 10 by 20. Like, we have huge glass. And the fact that it could actually be a disservice to me on the other side of that glass, where, I remember being pregnant and just laying in the sun behind my window. Give me that sun. Like, I wanted it, but it was freezing out. But like now, I'm like, wait, it's not even doing what I want it to do. I might as well be behind a red light panel.
So that's interesting. I would love to talk more about that. So UV, the reason that the UV glass is, I mean, obviously we've heard all kinds of UV as kids, you know, I mean, when I was a kid, I don't sure they even had sunscreen. And now obviously we sunscreen people up in the dark, you know, and so
I'm
that's a
against
separate,
that too, but let's go somewhere
yeah,
else.
yeah. No, I agree. I think everything in moderation, I think, is ultimately what this yields, right? Like
Yeah.
a little bit of sun, but not like 8 hours staring at the sun, right? I get it. Like my actually one of my best friends, his wife is a dermatologist. We'll have to have her on the podcast as because they wear hats. Like I swear they're like, you know, in a sod field. Like every dermatologist I've ever met when they go on family vacations to somewhere warm wears like a sombrero sun hat. They're definitely afraid of the sun.
I am going to send you this wonderful guy that I follow. He's a circadian biologist. His name is Zaid. I don't know his last name, but the amount of helpful nuggets that he puts out there, and it puts every dermatologist to shame. It's really wild. It'll blow your mind on circadian biology, which ties back to the house ultimately. But you go ahead. You were asking about the glass.
Well, I was asking about the glass. So so right now the coating is to block UV light. Is that mainly in a house setting? Because you're not worried about, you know, being burned necessarily. I don't think you are. Is it mainly so that like wood floors aren't fading as fast? Like what is the main reason for UV, or is it an energy? But you know, in a cold climate, obviously we want energy in the wintertime. In the summertime, it costs more money, I think, to cool a house than it does to heat it.
Right.
What was
I
the
think
what's
most
the
of it was driven by fading fabrics and floors and furniture. I think that was a big driver of it. But it also has a huge energy impact. A lot of times it is reverting the sunlight back out, and the coatings are different depending on your climate zone, right? So
Yep.
it's going to be different. But the problem is it is code. You know, like you can't. I mean, you could probably do a prescriptive sandwich and get away with points on certain walls where you could avoid it. Like if I wanted to not do a film in my bedroom, maybe you like pick a window where you could get away with this. I think you could. I also think the inspectors never look at your glass ever.
Yeah.
So there's that.
They only look to see if it's tempered. That's the
I
only
mean,
thing. That's the only thing they
that
care
little
about.
thing there, yeah. Does it have a film? You have no idea. You want to see my bill? Like never. So again, I know enough to be dangerous here, but it's a question that is fresh on my mind right now because it's wild, right? It's just
Well,
wild.
I mean, I think we've probably been aware of it without realizing. Again, today I didn't realize how much of my design meeting was going to come into today's podcast. But we had the client pick a bunch. You know, they presented a bunch of Pinterest for different rooms,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, sometimes when you're not picking it, I love it when a client, you know, has all their hopes and dreams and the whole team is looking at it. And two things I usually notice. One is they often don't know why they're picking stuff, and then we as professionals point it out to them. So we had one client who wanted a kind of a contemporary home,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not the style police, but I said, do you realize that half of your photos have arches in them? Just I don't have a I don't have a I just have an observation. It's not a statement. And they're like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even realize that. Or half the walls that you picked, I think, have plaster on them, which I love. I love the organic vibe. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, where I'm going with this is like a lot of times we don't know why we're gravitating towards something, but every single photo that they picked, everyone,
Mm-hmm.
interior, exterior, which obviously would have these when you hear it, the basement, exercise room, office, kitchen, every single photo had a window in it. Everyone. And I
Uh-huh.
said, and I was laughing, I said, you have excellent taste. And I said, I also think you're a human, because most of my clients do the same thing. Because in my experience in building for 21 years, I didn't know it at the time, but now I do. People, in my opinion, gravitate towards the smallest, well lit room in the house. And I think they do that. There's a refuge aspect to us, like almost like an animal. Like we want to be cozy, we want to be
Mm-hmm.
tucked in, kind of in a
Mm-hmm.
secure place. But then we want openness. So our back is to a wall. We're looking at all this natural light, and
Mm-hmm.
then we want it to feel comfortable and warm. And those are rooms with natural light. And if you could have three sides of glass, like I mean, heck, if you get a four, great. That's now you got
Mm-hmm.
a parapet or something, or a skylight or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is like, I was just highlighting this to them. I said, you know what? Not every room in your house can have glass on all the walls, because we need
Right.
some walls in your house. But I said, the rooms that are really important to you and the rooms that you will spend the most time in will have the most glass and the most solar exposure. And of course, the client was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. All those things that you know from architecture and I know from building. But we're talking about just being human. Like we
Right.
gravitate towards that.
100%. And that's why we've always gravitated as a firm to natural materials. Anything that's plastic or man-made just doesn't feel right. And I really think subliminally there is a feeling that your body gets, and an ease that you get just like being in a small well lit room. Like When you can tactily touch wood and real materials, you just know, it's natural and real. It's just those fake materials I could never ever, could never spec. Just
This episode is brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors. I've used Pella for 21 years as the exclusive window company on every one of my builds. When people ask me who I trust for windows and doors, it's Pella, every time. Their craftsmanship, their innovation, the top-tier service make them a no-brainer for any custom home builder or designer who demand the best. Whether you're designing something bold or building something with timeless elegance, Pella has you covered. They're also the only window company that has a lifetime warranty on all of their windows. I've gotten to know all of their people at Pella Corporate, as well as locally here at Pella Northland. I'm proud to call them our partners and our friends. Visit Pella.com to learn more and connect with your local reps today. For more information, you can also listen to episode 1, where I interview the Pella Northland founders, as well as episode 109, where we talk all about their latest innovation with the Steady Set window. There's always going to be some level of compromise. Or I remember, I should go back and reread. I have a book down in my basement called Plastic, and basically the whole book, it's a yellow cover. It's really attractive art. Whoever did the cover on it, and basically the whole thing is about, I think I remember doing the exercise like a decade ago, like write down everything that you touch, and I forget the numbers, but the majority of the things that you touch have some form of plastic in them. And it was just, as someone who loves being outside and loves nature and loves, a lot of the solutions to what you and I are both talking about is actually outside the home. And you're in the business of designing it. I'm in the business of building it. But at the end of the day, we're also, how do we get people outside? And one of the fastest growing segments, I would imagine, in the country, but for sure my clientele, is outdoor, indoor living. How do we encourage people with multi-slide doors or outdoor patios or out pools or saunas or whatever? How do we get people outside? And being, I think that's sometimes why having really adverse weather might help you, because I think being in Minnesota, it does get really cold up here. And I'm not sure if I've been lying to myself for 45 years or if I'm just that crazy, but like I find that if I go out when it's really cold, I feel so much better the rest of the day. Like your I'm sure your pores open up when you come back inside. You're all rosy, Ned, like you just like you're Santa Claus or something. You got the rosy cheeks. You're outside. That cold wind and again, exercise. We're meant to move, and however we can get outside. And you don't have to live in Minnesota to do this. I mean, I love mountains. I mean, I was in Arizona the other day. Like, get out, climb Camelback Mountain, get outside. It's hard to do in an urban environment. And so, anyway.
No, you're absolutely right. Gosh, getting people outside is critical. I mean, I think, I don't know if you follow Wim Hof. You ever follow Wim Hof, the Iceman? You read how we're really don't have much brown fat anymore as a species. We used to, like in Finland and the Nordic countries, they bring their babies outside and they leave them outside for hours. Like, they will leave them in their carriages, but they're out there and they're getting the freezing cold on their face. Because it really does something for your body. I always talk to clients about how we can do this on their house. I mean, I love that conversation. I love diving deep into that. And if they don't actually have that in their wheelhouse, I push it on them. Like, how can we get you out there? How can we get you to this level of health that you may not have heard of or experienced before? I think if it's easy and convenient, people will do it. If it's at their fingertips. I mean, I'm in the process of designing this non-tox wellness box. And it came out of being a mom who has little time, but need to do all the things, right? Like, I want a sauna. I want a cold plunge. I need to do yoga. I need to get red light. I need to do all the things, but I have 30 minutes. Can I do them in this box? Can I be grounding at the same time while doing it in this box? So I'm creating an earth and ground floor, a sauna that it can be a very hot curtained off sauna, but then also there can be an entire hot room. So it can be like a heated yoga space. So it's about like creating this space that is just easy. Like, I love wood burning saunas, but they take a long time to heat up. So I'm like, this kind of conflicts with my EMF. Oh no, EMFs. But this is the way we are in tech, the beings that we are. Everything's nuanced, right? Like, I can't. 80-20 is about as good as we'll get. 90-10, you're doing fantastic.
So that's so funny you say that. So in Misahus, that we had the hardest decision I had to make in the house, because I wanted to create a brand around a home
Hmm.
where the philosophy would dictate my decisions, so that the philosophy would be kind of like my client.
Hmm.
So because I kind of feel like if you design a house for everyone, you sort of design a house for nobody. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how I feel about it, because it's
Hmm.
like, and so I wanted it to be very unique. Well, for me personally, the fireplace was the hardest part of the whole house, because I didn't want natural gas appliances on the inside because of studies of off gassing of your natural gas and leading to asthma and things like that. So I went all electric there.
Hmm.
But then I was going to go. This is when I was back in the idea that I was going to do electric on everything. And then someone goes, "Well, what happens when the power goes out? You should have a redundant fuel source." I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense. Okay,
Hmm.
fine. We'll have a gas boiler for the in-floor
Right.
hydronic heat. Blah 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 blah. Anyway, long story short, is it easier to just point a button at your gas fireplace and make it go on? Yes. The problem is I really wanted a wood burner, but I couldn't get around the idea that, like, when it first starts and when it cools down, it can backdraft. Especially our house is like a point 0.6. It's almost passive. Like, doing a wood burning fireplace in an almost passive house is like stupid, because like it just isn't going to work. And I'm like, I can't have someone buy a multi-million-dollar house and then tell them, like, "Oh, by the way, you got to open up your windows in order to get it to start." Like, that's just going to seem really incompetent.
Right.
And so I struggled. We spent months going around and around on what to do, and finally the
Hmm.
architect was like, "Mark, you have to decide," and you have. And then he was so helpful, because he's actually the reason I got into ultra running. He's my
Hmm.
so he was the perfect architect because he's huge into wellness personally, and he
Hmm.
said, "What does wellness mean to you, and why do you keep wanting a wood burning fireplace so much?" And so I shared this memory. For me, I grew up with wood burning fireplaces as a kid, and I remember in January it's -20 out or super cold, that one cold weekend we get a year, and my
Hmm.
dad would be outside the window, and he'd have a sled full of logs. He'd bring them to the window. I'd be on the inside, a little 8-year-old kid, 9-year-old kid, however old I was, and my dad would hand logs to me through the window that I would stock in the wood burning firebox, and then we'd
Hmm.
have this beautiful fire. And that's like a really childhood formative memory for me. And so I'm
Hmm.
telling this to Carl, and he said, that sounds a lot like wellness. That sounds like a lot about peace. That sounds like a lot about having family memories with your dad." And when he said that, it completely unlocked my
Hmm.
idea of what wellness was. I was so focused on, like, is the air healthier to breathe?
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't, but like, what about this memory that you're establishing with your family? What about sitting down and watching a fire crackle? I haven't looked into it yet, but someone told me that there's something about watching actual natural fire burn versus like gas burning. Like, there's something in it. I need to go find a study on it, because I've heard, like, and I was like, this would just blow my mind. So
Hmm.
anyway, long story short, when he told me that, I'm like, you're right. I have to do wood burning, not for the air quality, because that's subjective, but
Yes.
for the wellness. For me, is the story, the intentionality,
Yes.
slowing life down. That is what it means to me.
I 100% agree with that. I love wood burning fireplaces. I really loathe the gas ones because, again, it's like you see it and you're like, it's so fake. These logs, the whole thing. I just can't, it's so I'm right there with you. I think, my family started buying a cow a year, right? We started
Ooh.
slaughtering our own cow. And then the cow from our butcher comes wrapped in plastic. I'm like, oh, man, even the natural. And I go to this homeopathic doctor and she's like, really? Take this supplement. You'll be fine. I'm like, thank you so much, because I'm like, I can't have this kind of crazy mind all the time. At
I
this point in my life, I just want joy. And joy comes from doing the best we can with what we have, but also being very educated about it and enjoying that fireplace. You know, I, so,
Well, and I think you touched on it earlier, the 80-20 rule. I mean, don't let perfect, or what is that old adage? Don't let good enough be no.
the enemy of,
Best is the enemy of good enough. And
right.
like, some of the stuff to the audience listening out there, like, obviously clearly you and I are very passionate about this, but like,
Mhm.
it's not in place of in judgment. It's a place of sharing and a place of excitement and enjoyment. Like, do the thing that means something. That's why I think wellness is
Mhm.
subjective to some people. I heard a great thing the other day, and it was with Curious Builder Boot Camp, part of what we do is it's like a 3-day detachment, no phones, no alcohol, those
Mm.
kinds of things. And we had a discussion one night around the campfire, and someone brought up something really important. And they said, just kind of this concept of moderation, and like there's no question that alcohol is poison. It just literally that's what it is. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a place in wellness. And someone brought up a story. They're like, hey, on my anniversary, I was in Napa and I wanted to have a glass of wine. And like, that's wellness to me. And I'm like, I agree with you. I think that's totally, and everyone, alcohol is a complicated thing for a lot of people. And this isn't a judgment. I'm just sharing a story that meant a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I could get behind that. I could totally be like, you know what? Yes, I think that has something to do with wellness. And so I think everyone is on their own wellness journey, and we love to ask people about it. This podcast is meant to be a very vulnerable, open space. I'm not an expert. You're not an expert, but we are sharing like our passions and how it affects our work. Like I'm creating an entire company. The way I'm building homes has completely changed from a year ago. Like that's wild.
Right.
And all I'm doing is like following the things that really feed me energy and feed me excitement. I'm passionate about this, and it's okay not to know everything. I think sometimes our society, we feel like we have to have everything black and white and have 100% agreement. No, we're figuring it out. We're kind of all a hot dumpster fire, businesses, people. We're just trying to do the best we can, people.
I know. It's funny because I feel like since I've been in the space for quite a while now, it's like I'm reverting back to the basics as much as possible. So the majority of health, I think, comes from being outside, getting the sunlight. Forget a lot of this other stuff. Like it's free and cheap. You go outside, you put your toes in the grass, even when it's really cold, do it for a few minutes. You can handle it, and follow Wim Hof and do the breathing or something to do it. But just a couple times a week, you'll feel so invigorated. It might suck in the beginning, and it will, but like you'll feel so good. Yeah, full believer of that.
I mean, this sounds like, I mean, you're very passionate about it, obviously. How do you think this affects your work? How do you think it helps you attract clients? How is this sort of, I mean, we can't help but share the things that we're passionate about. So obviously you're talking to your clients about it. Talk to us a little bit from a business sense. What are your clients telling you when you're sort of engaging with them in this way?
Yeah, I think I'm a very blunt person. If you haven't, if it's coming off here, but with my clients, I'm very upfront with them, because to be frank, they're usually very wealthy, and not all of them, because we also have a whole shipping container business, which is a whole nother thing where we're designing like McDonald's burgers that are the same philosophy, but cheap, which is fantastic. We're doing a lot of affordable housing in Washington with that. But just when we get to be custom with our clients, I'm constantly reducing square footage. I can't tell you how much I do that. I used to live on a boat. I had my first 2 babies on a boat. And if I could, I would go back to it.
Did you really?
It was awesome. I was in Washington, D.C. on the water. The monument was right out there. And, the furniture's built in. I can't bring much on there. It's just, you really begin to get so simple with your life.
Oh, this was your houseboat.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought maybe like on a cruise and you had a baby while you're on a cruise.
No, we lived on a boat.
Okay, that makes way more sense.
We lived at a live aboard community and only left because DC got crazy with COVID. So, but yep. I would still be on there today if it wasn't for that. But I still work in Washington and all that. But I think where was I going with this? Oh, the biggest thing with the clients is really getting them to realize that they don't need as much square footage. And I'm constantly trying to talk about the Swiss Army knife. How can we do so many things with one gesture? How can we make your life stress-free? Like, how do you begin to really minimize in this house? My parents used to drag me around to antique shops. I love my parents, but I loathe antique shops now because of all the knickknacks and the tchotchkes. And this is maybe why I went full modern for most of it. Because I'm like, I just can't stand the fake stuff on the bookshelves. I don't need a bunch of books that you're not going to read with a cute bookend, with a fake plant, with a picture. It's just like stuff on top of stuff. And if we could get away with all of that, give it away. And, I think it really frees your mind of space too. And people don't realize it. I think it's really, I think it weighs on people, all the stuff around them, and I don't think they realize it, holding on to a basement full of storage of whatever.
I think a way to relate to people is ask someone if they enjoy moving. I've never met anyone other than my parents. They're on home number 19. They love moving. But other than mom and dad, actually, the reason my mom and dad love moving is so that they stay decluttered. And
I was just gonna say that.
my dad is a complete minimalist. He'll live in a place for like 2 to 3 years, and he's like, I want all new things. I want to sell everything I own and move to the next thing and
So
start over again.
this is so funny, but that's exactly how I feel about moving. I haven't moved that much, but every time I do, I'm like, you just get rid of stuff, and I think it's actually a great thing.
It's super helpful. I mean, we do a lot of remodels, and
Hmm.
you know, a lot of people end up buying a home and then remodeling it before they move in, which is great, but it's kind of like cheating because like someone who remodels the home that they live in, it's pretty daunting. Like it takes a lot for someone to realize. We did one for a couple where they had 7 or 9 kids, like they're a big family, and they moved out into a rental. I'm sure it was unpleasant experience for sure. It was just right after COVID, so you can only imagine what that was like. And we did a 3-story addition on their house, to
Hmm.
navigate all the kids and the different walks of life. And all, I mean, I think they had everything from a baby to like 23. I mean, they had a massive range of kids. And
Hmm.
but the point being is like they wanted to go back into their home, and the things that they basically have to get rid of, because like I can't, it becomes real clear to them real quickly on the first meeting when I'm like, are you planning on living in this house during the remodel? Because
Hmm.
for me, it's actually a way that I pick my ideal clients, because the answer better be no. Because
Yeah.
it is impossible to meet people's expectations if you were in the kitchen watching the chef make your food, like you'd be like, why is it taking so long? Why is
Right.
everything bloody? And why is everyone
Right.
yelling at each other?
Right. Why isn't
It's
everybody moving at all times? What do you mean you're
yeah,
stopping? Yeah.
yeah. There's no bathroom breaks,
No.
people.
Yeah.
And did you wash your hands? And so
Yeah.
anyway, the point being is like it's such a better experience when they move. For them, it's better for me. And I often use myself. We had a baby during COVID, and we remodeled our house at the same time, and we lived in it. So I did all the things I tell my clients not to do. So I use myself as like stupid material. Like, don't do it. We moved out to have the baby. We actually had an Airbnb for 4 months while we had the baby, which is
Hmm.
hilarious to me. And but anyway, you just use. We're all humans. We're all just kind of figuring out the best we can. And sometimes there's real financial reasons. Someone just says, I
Hmm.
can't.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Fine. We just really have to talk about expectations. And so
Yeah.
anyway, I really try to avoid that. Or that's where I feel like building a new home is a lot easier from a client's point of view, because they're not there every night, every weekend.
For sure.
The
For
home can
sure.
kind of be built in a
Yeah, it's funny. The conversations lately, I feel like that are so all over the place on Instagram and those places about mold. It's like everything is about these moldy homes, not breathing, and all of this stuff. And the, it kind of is wild to me because a lot of mold comes from dust, uncleanliness in the house. And I always joke with people, I'm like, listen, if you're not drinking mold-free coffee yet, like if you don't realize that your mold has coffee, or I mean, your coffee has mold in it, then I mean, it's good that you're doing your bathroom, but you're literally ingesting it daily because the majority of coffee has mold in it. So I'm like,
Well, how is the mold getting into the coffee?
oh my goodness. So when they collect the beans, it
Yeah.
sits in burlap sacks for a long time, and those sacks, it's just growing mold. So a lot of the coffee you have to, if you're a coffee drinker, you should look into third party tested beans. Like I use Purity is the brand I like, but there's a lot now. But it's like if you're not, you got to get there first. Like do the little things. Not that you shouldn't rip out your bathroom, but that's like a $50,000
Well, I
fix.
think you mean do the big things, because the little big things, like for instance, go outside more. That's something free, cheap, easy, things like that. I hear what you're saying. I think it's so funny you say that. What really clicked for me when thinking about Misa Hus and the things that were going into it is we talk about all the things that we touch, like what you're touching things that are bad for you, or like like I have little kids,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like stuff falls on the ground, or you're eating it, or like obviously gasoline smells to high heaven, so you can smell it, or if you're at a pump
Mm-hmm.
station, things like that. But we never, or I shouldn't say nobody, we rarely talk about what we breathe and what we drink and what we eat from the standpoint of like, is it even safe for us to do so?
Right.
Now we might say like, right now my kids are like, oh, I don't like that food, or I don't like that food. Sure, they're already attuned to it, but like our bodies are freaking amazing at purifying stuff. And like I think of my lungs only because this summer I was training for a 100-mile race, and we had a number of Canadians fires that kept coming down into Minnesota, and it was like they have the ratings of like when you're not supposed
Mm-hmm.
to go and whatnot. Now, don't ask me if I always go, because I'm like, yeah, screw it. And so, but the point is, I'm a bit of a hypocrite that way, because I'm
Oh, I
like,
know,
well,
Lynn. Yeah.
yeah. And so like, I also don't like the idea that like we can do we can do hard things, we can do things that are unpleasant, but there is a certain point where like it's just not safe. But
Right.
anyway, back to the point of a home, like we spend, what'd you say percent of our life do we spend indoors?
90%,
I
they
mean,
say,
that's crazy. That is so much more than I would have ever have guessed.
in today's
Um,
world.
and so the question is are air handlers? So like, do you do UV filters? Do you do HEPA filters? Like
Hmm.
just stuff that we weren't asking a handful, or only were asking it maybe post COVID when everyone was going around with their masks on. I had a
Hmm.
client who had really difficult respiratory illness. He would wear two N95 masks, and he basically said that if I get sick during this bill, I'll die. Because my lung capacity is so compromised. And so he was super careful. But it really opened up my eyes, because I've often like mold, like I tell my wife all the time when she says, I'm like, well, I also never get sick. I think it's because of all the mold I drink in my coffee, evidently. And so, and so I
But
don't, yeah,
yeah, you're also doing the sauna and getting outside
right,
and getting all that,
right.
So it's, yeah.
This podcast has been all over the place. I hope people are like, what is happening? You know what's funny though is we had whenever around the first of the year we talk a lot about, we didn't talk about it today, but like mental health, mental wellness, things like that. We're talking mostly about physical health, but I find that everyone, I hope there's things in this episode that people will be like, well, I want to know more about that, because what I love is, interesting people like you. I mean, you've said 20 things now. I got to go. Thanks a lot. I'm gonna have to go. I have to look into it. Like I have a note sheet of all these things I have to like go look into that I don't know anything about, because now I'm just really curious about. And I think that's what makes, honestly, life fun. But that's what makes being an entrepreneur fun, and in the
Hmm.
space that we're in. Because what other space do we interact so intimately with its user based or
Right.
client? I like client based better than user based,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, user.
And
Now
uh,
I know,
and
heard
and
that word.
I know, right? And we hope people are addicted to architecture and building.
Please.
So what are you excited about here for next year in architecture? Do you have any
Ooh.
really cool projects you're excited about, or something that you're, you
Honestly,
know?
I really hope that, I mean, I just started this whole non-tox thing not even a year ago. So I really hope that the conversation just deepens and that people are excited to build homes that are conscious of these things, that they'll call us to say, hey, oh my gosh, I have to have a house with all of these things. Can we please sit down and design a house around my story? Like that's the dream. The more we can stipple our buildings all over the world, the better. We're doing cool stuff all around the country right now, but we do go global sometimes depending on the project. So yeah, I hope the conversation just reaches more people, and I don't want it to overwhelm them. The last thing in this conversation I've realized, I mean, people do get completely overwhelmed and then they shut it down. They're like, oh, I just can't. And it really is baby steps, and but it's also, if you can afford it, that's why you hire the professionals, that know what they're doing. I think there's some stat like only 11% of homes are designed by architects, which blows my mind. But at the same time, I can see that when I drive around the roads, like everything looks the same. If I squint in DC, it's all about the same. All the new multifamilies are about the same. So, I do really think the architect is the composer of all of these pieces, and that you need us to orchestrate all the parties and bring the best team together. We really pride ourselves on that. And we're a soup to nuts firm. I mean, from the very beginning to the very end, like we don't bring in interior designers. If it's attached, it's us. Electrical is us. I mean, we're very deep in all of
So
the things.
are you handling your own GC as well?
Are we handling our own GC? Like, are we
Yeah,
building?
yeah. Are you building it too?
So it's funny. We just closed our construction company. At the end of this fiscal year, we're closing it. I've been a partner in the construction company for the past 12 years. We were building not all of ours, a handful. Maybe we would do 2 or 3 a year of our custom builds within like 45 miles of Washington. But we're going to focus on architecture. It's a lot in Washington, especially. Is super litigious, very litigious. And we want to keep those really great client relationships in the end and do what we do best. But I mean, I was full whole hog in the construction. I did all the pricing, all the pay apps, the
Oh
contracts.
man, we're gonna have to. I want to do a second episode where we just talk about just the balancing. Actually, we will do a second episode, because this one was all, which was great, all on wellness, and I'm here for it. But I'm
Hmm.
also, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, I'm super fascinated on, balancing the two. I only know a handful of people that are both, their firms are both architecture and GC. It's just a very rare, it's a rare thing that happens.
Hmm.
How big is your firm?
It's small, five. I mean, but we are closing the GC side down.
Yeah,
It's just architecture now. But yeah, it was great while it lasted. Our main builder unfortunately passed away about 5 years ago, so that kind of made a big pivot in our way we operate it. But it's amazing. So we didn't call ourselves design build. We were distinctly architects and distinctly contractors because we always wanted our clients to be able to competitively bid. We didn't want to feel like there was any kind of conflict of interest. And we weren't always available to build everything that we
right.
were coming out, with. So it was nice, but I was the full-on liaison, between the design and the construction,
Well,
making sure it went seamlessly.
it's funny you talk about litigious state, Washington. I can only imagine. But my lawyer, when we were writing our contracts, and we used to do I still do a design retainer, but I used to capture the architect or the designer depending on the scale of the home. If it was a
Hmm.
full-on architecture, obviously we don't capture the architect. That's their own AIA contract with the client.
Hmm.
But on smaller stuff like remodels, just to keep it simple for the client, I just do the architect would essentially be under my whatever.
Hmm.
And he basically just said, you're exposing yourself to more risk. And then he looked at me, he's like, but to be clear, the GC is always going to get sued no matter what happens. And he's like, because as the GC, we are doing all the work. So therefore we touch everything. And so,
Yeah.
anyways, just the world we live in at the end of the day, hopefully, I mean, the contractor is really there for when things go sideways or things go really bad. You really don't ever want to go that way, obviously, but you do need to make sure that you're buttoned up. But the problem with contracts is like pretty much every contract has some sort of get out of jail free card. Have you read like so like the other day, I have a Yukon truck,
Hmm.
basically for all my kids. And so like I went, the oil pan went out and I got like 140,000 miles on it, which I'm shocked they were covering it. But anyway, they said, well, if you can prove regular maintenance and oil change, then we won't pay for it. Well, I had to call Valvoline Oil Change, track down all these oil changes. They sent me it, and they're like, yeah, two times you went above the exceeded limit of like 6,000 miles or whatever. Therefore, will null and void every oil change you've ever done. I'm like, oh, for goodness sakes, I've done how many oil changes? And yet, but my point is like people
Yeah.
can always find, I think what in the world that we live in today, what you're really looking for is relationships that,
Yeah.
yes, there's a time and place where we need a contract and there are clients that we need them to protect ourselves from them. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that there's people like that, but at the end of the day, like they are trusting us to deliver on what we said we're going to do, and we're
Mhm.
trusting them to pay us to do what we said we're going to do. And as long as both parties hold up their end of the bargain and are reasonable about it, like
Yeah.
it's going to be a great experience. Right now I hand out all my holiday gifts in person, and so I like to do it to A to C people that I haven't seen. I
Mhm.
went and toured someone's home today. I hadn't seen them in 9 years in their home, and we sat down. They asked me in for coffee. We talked for. I said actually I have to leave for this podcast. I said I got to go, but it
Mhm.
was just amazing. And like people are so warm, and it's easy to
Mhm.
focus on the things that are difficult in our industry, but there's so many really rewarding things. Like we didn't even get to talk about all of your kind of combat expensive housing. We'll bring that up on the next podcast. In terms of your container box, because you guys gotten a ton of national attention for that, and I would
Yeah.
love to know more about how to
Yeah.
do that.
Mhm. Mhm. No, for sure. I think unfortunately the very first question you asked me about my life lesson, that was the only lawsuit we've ever gotten into. And it's something where you realize it is better to have everybody under their own contracts
Mhm.
because yeah, they could ultimately go after you if there's a lot that goes to it. But we used to bring in like the mechanical engineer and the structural and civil all under our umbrella, but we don't do that anymore. It's like we manage it for the client, but the client pays those folks directly. It just from a legal standpoint keeps it a lot cleaner. Pray to good God that it never happens again, but
Mhm.
there are.
Well, we actually, this will be the first time we talk about it publicly. We're doing what I'm calling the Smile Tour. So we're pretty strong in the Midwest, and so we're going to start on the West Coast in Q1 from Seattle down to LA. Then Q2 will be like Arizona to say Florida, and then
Uh-huh.
up the East Coast in third quarter, and the Northeast in the fourth quarter. So we'll have you back on when we hit that part. So we'll probably be third or fourth quarter. We'll bring you back on. I'd love to hear. I'll make
Perfect.
some notes to talk about the containers and then
Hmm.
also to talk about the GC and the building side. We're
Yeah.
also going to overlay it with a book club, well, a book club. So we picked 5 books,
Oh, I love that.
and then so we'll tell the audience and the guest ahead of time what book we'll be discussing, and that will just be another sort of like another level of things that we can talk about on the podcast.
Oh, so cool.
That'll be fun.
Awesome. This has been so fun.
Yeah. And what's the best way for people to reach out to you? Just through the website, through your LinkedIn profile?
So, at Non-Tox Architect is my Instagram, and then Travis Price Architects is our firm. So just contact us there. I'm Kelly at Travis Price Architects. Shoot me an email. Call anytime. I prefer phone calls. This whole like not calling people in the younger generation, I'm like, please call.
Yep.
Pick up the phone. It happens a lot faster. So yeah, I'm
I love it.
on there.
I love it. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and thanks for the audience for tuning in to another great episode on the Curious Builder podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
We have a consulting page, one-to-one consulting. You can book my time for 1 hour. Perhaps you've heard a guest where you like one of the topics. Maybe you want an introduction to some of the guests that I've had on. Perhaps you want to talk about branding or marketing or anything that we've covered on the podcast over the last 2.5 years. You can book a time at curiousbuilderpodcast.com. Thanks for tuning in to the Curious Builder Podcast. If you like this episode, do us a favor. Share it with 3 other business owners. The best way that we can spread what we're doing is by word of mouth, and with your help, we can continue to help other curious builders expand their business. Please share it with your friends, like and review online, and thanks again for tuning in.